Enchanté, my little babies. I hope everybody is doing well. I hope you are good and happy and comfy. We are here for our midweek alchemy message, where we are unpacking this week's lessons and spiritual assignments and taking a look at how we're approaching the work. So from the wild unknown archetypes, from the wild unknown alchemy deck, we've got silver, followed by Pluto. I think none of us can deny that we're certainly feeling the effects of Pluto recently. And then we've got sublimation. Underneath silver, we've got 9 of Pentacles. Underneath Pluto, we have Knight of Cups. And underneath sublimation, we have Page of Wands. All right, so let's jump right in. I know like our Wednesday message theoretically always like piggybacks on Monday's message, but I feel that this one did so ever so poignantly. Monday was all about like letting go of control and our dependency on like thinking about our material security and connecting with our understanding that source, the light, God, is our real provider, and not the outer vessel that we perceive that our fulfillment comes through. And so we were also being shown how right now our resources are sort of being held at a distance or taken away completely from what we're used to, so that we are shown any kind of fear and lack around abundance and scarcity. And when we can see those fears, we can see where the opponent can come in and trigger those areas to get us reactive and to separate us from being, in union with God or in affinity with God, right? Because when we're in a reactive state, we are not acting like our higher selves. We're not acting in sovereignty or using our free will, and we're not behaving like God. As human beings, what we are here to do is overcome our fear and our lack and actually learn how to choose certainty and to awaken that deep and authentic sense of certainty in the Creator within our consciousness. And the certainty that we're talking about comes from a Hebrew word, emunah. And that is a faith that is beyond logic, beyond reason, a faith that is beyond what we can see, feel, or touch, beyond what makes sense. And so we're awakening this certainty, and the certainty is that God is with me through all things. And no matter what I find playing out in my life, as long as I cling to the Creator and resist the urge to become reactive and surrender to the Creator, trust that the Creator can be activated within any situation, even if the opponent spun up some chaos to thwart us from our potential and foil our plans and hold us back. The Creator, if we are in faith and we are in belief and in confident that the Creator is with us, will not fail us, and will always help us and assist us, then that situation can turn around to actually elevate us in a way and reveal blessings. So the key here is that we're learning how to be dependent on the Heavenly Father, on the light, and not on the material world. So, did I take you guys through the... I'm distracted, but underneath silver, we had 9 of Pentacles. Underneath Pluto, we had Knight of Cups. Oh, yes, I did do this. And then underneath sublimation, we have the Page of Wands. Okay. So, silver is a precious metal, and it is next to gold, but it's not quite as good as gold. Gold is pure. It's incorrupted. It's got a firmness, a hardness to it. Silver is not exactly pure. You can get pure silver. You can purify silver, but it's not always pure. And silver is soft, so it's more malleable than gold, and silver can also tarnish. So silver is kind of the number 2, next to gold being the number 1 element in the alchemy spectrum. And so silver represents us. Gold is connected with the sun, whereas silver is connected with the moon. You see this image that appears to be the moon. It might be just like the beginnings of a polished silver bottom of a bowl, right? But it looks like the moon. And so the sun is representative of God, and gold is associated with the sun. The light is the sun. So we've got the light, God, gold, all connected with the sun. And then we have the moon, which is connected with silver, which is the vessel, which we are the vessel. God is the light. We are the vessel here made to receive the light. So the moon does not have light of its own. It reflects the light of the sun, but the moon changes. It's affected. It waxes and wanes. The sun is eternal. It's unwavering. It's unchanging, right? That's why it represents God's unchanging nature's incorruptibility. So we being silver, we are, as human beings, have God's light within us, and we are, in a sense, divine beings, but we're also human beings. So we're not purely divine like the sun, we're like the moon. And so as divinely human beings, our assignment is to come here to Earth specifically to overcome our own shadow nature, our darkness, our negativities, our fears, our scarcity, our insecurity, right? So we do the work, and we elevate our soul, and we awaken our consciousness, we up level, and we just continue to do this and go through the process, but we're never really done. And we don't need to rest on our laurels. We don't need to get too comfortable, because the moment that we think, oh, we're good, like I am so elevated, I'm righteous, that's when we start to get tarnished. And when we, let our consciousness slip, we need to really guard our heart and guard our consciousness, because it can slip into, selfishness and darkness and fear and negativity so quickly. So we are always polishing the vessel, polishing the silver to keep it maintained. And so what that means is that we adopt this devotion, this practice of Christ discipline. And it doesn't mean that Christ is like disciplining us. Like, I know that like when people have triggers around religion, it's because they think that they're always in trouble and they're getting a Bible beating, and Jesus is ashamed and disappointed and going to punish them, and God's going to punish them. And that's not what I mean by discipline of the Christ. I mean that kind of like spiritual kung fu, Christianity, becoming like Christ, being a disciple of Christ, is like a discipline. It's a form of self-mastery, but it's not taught in the Christian church in this way. I think modern Christianity has really pacified the religion, when it was always meant to be very proactive. You were supposed to be taking on the stations of the cross and sacrificing the self and being active in your awakening and becoming more like the Christ and having Christ-like consciousness, right? So we're like perfectly perfect in our dysfunctionalism. It's like there's this duality here where, you know, here's like the Nine of Pentacles, for instance. The Nine of Pentacles is almost a complete picture, right? But she's not quite there yet. She doesn't have the whole family and the home figured out, but she's on her way. But the Nine of Pentacles always it depicts like a single person who's still looking for something, although they have achieved quite a lot and they're starting to appreciate and enjoy the fruits of their labor, but they have a very strong connection with the Holy Spirit, right? So, you know, as the Nine of Pentacles, it depicts like this self-assured, independent business person who has a strong relationship with the Holy Spirit and is guided and led, and that's what has led to a lot of their success. So it's like we're a work in progress and we're never quite done. We're never the full, complete picture. We're always working on ourselves. However, we don't want to look at ourselves as flawed or as undeserving or as even incomplete or imperfect. We have to be able to adopt a paradoxical understanding that we are paradoxical in nature. We are both imperfect and perfect at the same time. We're perfectly imperfect because the point of our human incarnation in this physical material realm is to take the darkness that is in the cosmos and alchemize it and transmute that into light. Turn grudge into love, turn selfishness into selflessness, turn ignorance into wisdom, turn hardness into compassion. You know, we're turning fear into faith, fear into certainty. And so we're here to, and each one of us before we come to earth, it's like we're given this like this amount, this assigned darkness to transmute in this life. And it's like, okay, there's a little bit of greed and a little bit of jealousy and a little bit of like insecurity, competitiveness, and everybody's got their own little unique bag of tricks that they have to come here to earth to take through a process. And so that is the whole point of human beings, is to come here in our perfection, go through the process where we awaken a desire to become more like God. And so that initiates our desire to take on that discipline of Christ consciousness. And then we go through this process of awakening our soul. And to become more like the light. And so in that, it's not that we have to, like, we're already 100% loved unconditionally, accepted, and whole as we are. Whilst at the same time, happily understanding that in this form as of now, we're not quite complete yet. It's like when a fruit has to grow on the vine or the tree until it's actually ready before it's picked, or else it won't ripen to the right flavor. So we are like fruit that has to ripen and come to a mature stage. It's not like we're meant to just be out of the box ready. This is like a wine. We're like wine. We are crushed down. We're grapes that have been crushed down, and the juice has just been drained from us. And we are then bottled into a vessel and taken through a process that makes us a fine vintage with dimension and character and flavor, which pleases God. So having to start the week realizing that we are wonderful and lovable and whole and perfect in our imperfection. We are functional in our dysfunction. So that's good news. Now, we're also being invited to become less dependent on others and material things. And, you know, I know whether or not you're in LA or not, just generally speaking, January is a difficult time of year as far as like finances go, because most industries are kind of slow. Everybody's trying to pull back after the Christmas spending and eating and drinking. And so many people are like, hunkering down and not going out. And so a lot of businesses don't exactly pull in a lot of revenue this time of year. And so if you're an independent contractor, you've got a small business, or if you work in, say, an industry that fluctuates with the seasons and your income isn't like the same check every week, then January can be a scary time of year. I know historically for me in film, sometimes we had 0 gigs in January. So I have been a veteran of the frights of winter for really all of my adult life. I've never had like a stable 9-to-5 job where I had like the same check every week. I've never known that. And so it struck me today that, for thousands of years, humanity has gotten to January and been like, the warmth of the holidays is over. Think about this. For thousands and thousands and thousands of years, particularly in the Northern Hemisphere, when you get to January, okay, you're like, the harvest has been picked a while back. We have no more warmth and feasting over the holidays. And there's no more sparkly, good tidings and good cheer. It is just soggy, dark, cold winter with your supplies running thinner and thinner and thinner. So, part of the feast of Christmas and, the fact that it goes through January 6th, it was like trying to get us over the hump, because we still have many weeks left before spring is officially, announced and it's officially started. But then even after that, spring is pretty shitty until you get to the end of spring into summer. So yeah, we're all sort of feeling it right now. And, if you're in a place like that's just recently been through any disasters, or depending where you are in the world, you might be in a war-torn country. You might be feeling it really bad, and you're knowing more than anybody the lesson of how quickly everything can change, and how the only real security and safety we have that we can really depend on is our certainty in the Creator. Nothing in this material world is certain. Nothing is guaranteed. So we have no choice but to really trust, right? And just hope, or else we just live in a state of fear and hypervigilance all the time. And then we're not doing our inner work. We're not awakening our soul. We're still a slave to fear. And then we're making our decisions in a reactive state, in an emotional state. Then you've got anxiety and depression, and you're grouchy and you're on edge. And it's just like, And so, these are the weeks of our lives and the months of our lives. So when we can reach a place where we've seen it all ripped out from under us, there's something so liberating for when something like happens that takes something from you and it's just out of your control and there's nothing you can do about it. And you're like, once you get on the other side of it and you've realized that you've survived, whether it's, a really major breakup. I know we've all experienced this in some form or another, whether you lost what you thought was your dream job, or whether you went through a horrible breakup that you didn't want, or like you're one of the people in LA who's lost their home suddenly. It's like, once you realize that things can change so fast and things can be taken away, it's like when you survive that, get on the other side of it, you just feel like sort of like, wow, I am not nearly as dependent on material things as I used to be, and I'm not nearly as dependent on people as I used to be, or people's approval or people's opinions, right? So this is a really uncomfortable time for humanity, but it's also prompting a real awakening of spirit and a real awakening of the soul and a exponential growth spurt in humanity and in humanity's expansion of consciousness. So we have Pluto here, And Pluto is the planet that brings death and resurrection and transformation. And it's like that chaos, that the formlessness that form comes through. And so, I mean, that this needs no explanation. We felt the karmic influence of Pluto's connection with Capricorn for that 16-year cycle that we just got through. We had the holidays to catch our breath. Remember that our messages, it was like, enjoy the holidays. Like, don't put yourself under pressure under the holidays. Just really enjoy the holidays. And it's like, well, now it makes sense, because the moment the holidays were over, the moment we got into the first week of 2026, it was like chaos, Armageddon, crazy things are happening. Like, you wouldn't believe what's really going on. It's like, oh my gosh. So here's Pluto in Aquarius. It's like, we're going to give you the holidays, and then Pluto is going to get right to work in Aquarius. And so we see these major themes about how we are and are not taking care of humanity and the earth and the collective, and how we are, society and the world system has been based on self-centered, self-serving motives, and how we are seeing how that's not sustainable, how it collapses, and how it actually is killing the planet Earth. And so planet Earth, Mama Bear, is not pleased, and she is fighting the threat of the entire planet. And right now, the threat of the entire planet is humanity. And it's not all of humanity, but it is humanity that is driven by greed. And it is humanity that gives no second thought to their day-to-day and their consumerism in the way that they're affecting the planet as well. So this is wake up time. We all have to take individual responsibility to make conscious choices in the micro actions and decisions and choices of our day. You know, this isn't just about choosing what kind of car you're going to buy. This is about, like, what I think makes a bigger difference than the kind of car you drive and the emissions that it's putting out is the fact that, do you use K-cups every day for your coffee and make little plastic cup garbage that took a whole factory, resources and fossil fuels to burn to make the plastic cup, just so you can have one individual cup of coffee? Oh, because it's so convenient. It's like, just make the pot of coffee. You're creating less garbage, right? So we take for granted those micro decisions, and we put our attention on all of these things that we like purchase once every 10 years, and it doesn't matter. But it's like, it's all the things, those daily habits that we're doing that are filling up the landfills and exhausting our planet. And so we need to think, and really consider before we're just consuming, before we're just buying more things and wasting more things and replacing more things. It's like, can you fix it? Do you really need another one? So, we all have to start taking more responsibility, right? So we are in this moment that is heartbreaking and tragic, and it's devastating and uncomfortable. And I mean, I know for myself, like, since these fires started last week, I've just woken up every morning and had a crying fest during my morning prayers, taking it all in and just feeling the pain of humanity. And this is a productive thing to do, to feel. It's not like you're wallowing in your own grief and your own despair. It's like you're feeling the pain of the collective, and we're processing that. And when you really feel the pain of the collective, it starts to make you think about things. It starts to make you reevaluate and reconsider and think about things differently, and approach life differently, and it awakens your compassion. And so, in the midst of all of this pressure and upheaval, there is this beautiful hope coming through and being reborn. And I think that their hearts are being broken, but they're being broken open in a very tender way. I think that if we were maybe several years ago, or if we were watching an action movie, I think that common thought would have depicted LA in like a dystopian, apocalyptic, Armageddonous, riotous anarchy right now. Dog eat dog, rioting, looting, and they're not. People are trying to help each other and trying to pick up the pieces and trying to feed one another and clothe one another and put each other's houses out. People are standing guard with their water hoses, just trying to spray each other's houses down so they won't catch on fire. So I am just broken, but also inspired just watching all of this play out. And it gives me a deep sense of hope that I think that we've come a long way in recent years. And I think that it's so important to continue to realize how powerful this is and to maintain that consciousness, because as this drags out, people are going to get worn thin. And so you really have to keep that brotherhood alive and that sense of community and that sense of sharing. Because when you start your willpower starts wearing down as you get more tired and more just discouraged and woeful from battling with the insurance companies. It's like, good luck with that. I mean, if anybody sees anything from it, it'll be a miracle. So there is this rebirth and reawakening of spirit and soul and inspiration and love and generosity and camaraderie happening in LA. And I think that it's contagious. It spreads, it doesn't just stay there. The whole world is watching. Look at all the footage of people coming in from different countries, like groups of firefighters flying in from all over the world to help us. People care. People care even about people on the other side of the world that we've never met. And it gets so easy to grow numb to the carnage, right? And feel a disconnect from the suffering that's happening on the other side of the world. But their suffering is our suffering, and our suffering is theirs. We're all connected on this planet. I mean, it sounds insane to say this, but it's like, they've even been like, yeah, well, now we definitely know there's aliens. We're just talking about the aliens now, as if it's just common knowledge. And I mean, I've been feeling that they're there for most of the time anyway, but now it's just yeah, I mean, we've got aliens. And a lot of psychics and people are getting the impression that they're not here in a hostile way at all. That if anything, that they are realizing what a valuable, precious, irreplaceable gift that we have here on Earth in this habitable planet. And we, the human beings, are going to destroy it because we got too advanced too quickly, like we have over and over and over again. And if we didn't learn anything from Atlantis, we're doing the same things again. Oh, and here come the robots. Could we not have seen this coming? Basically, I was thinking the other day about John Hutchinson, who was this time traveler who appeared in these chat rooms in the 90s. And there's these transcripts that you can read with these people having conversations, and they're trying to bait him, they're trying to test him. And he's like, look, I don't know the whole history of the time frame that I came from. Who would, do you know who won the Stanley Cup last year? Get real. But the things that he prophesied and said were going to happen, it's so crazy how close we are, but it feels like we're in a different timeline. That's another thing. We're just casually going through the world now, understanding that we can quantum leap into different realities. And now this is just like the norm. We're like, we're on the new timeline. And I think we take for granted. We're like this is amazing. So what was I just talking about? Oh yeah, so the time travel. So I mean, if I were a time traveler and I were going to go back to the 90s and try to warn people and try to change and shift the trajectory that we were on as humankind, I would tell everyone, watch the action movies from the 80s and 90s, action movies and sci-fi movies. And I'm here to tell you, they are not fiction. They are prophecies. Like, they are going to play out almost exactly like you see them in the movies. Get ready. Try to avoid doing what the people in the movies did to bring these threats on. But no, we did not. We did not do that. We went ahead and made the robots. Very chilling. So we are having a renewal of spirit, a renaissance of the human heart, which I think is very, very hopeful, very encouraging. We have sublimation here, which talks about that elevation of consciousness and elevation of spirit. The warning here is to not go into like drifting off into escapism into the ethereal realms, right? Because we still, like, we're so needed here on earth to be grounded, feet on the ground. And, you know, when we're overwhelmed and we're in a trauma response, we can have a tendency to want to escape. And if you're a spiritual person, you know, I hear people talking about all the time, like going off to these spiritual retreats and going off into like these isolated meditation things, and which is great, but like that's not always the circumstances that you're going to be in when you need to use those tools. And we don't always have the choice to go off into the mountains and isolate, you know, and the world actually needs us to be here on the ground in the material, doing our work here and sharing that with others. And so basically one of the ways we have to approach staying present right now and actively doing the work. And when I say doing the work, it means being present with what's happening in life right now and understanding that that's taking our soul through a process of awakening. And so through this, we can become deeper and more caring and more resilient and stronger individuals, right? So as we are going through this process, the key to being able to withstand the conditions that we're coming into is to approach them with a sense of inquisitiveness and adventure. I was watching some updates from like a copywriting coach that I've kept up with for the last few years. And she and her husband had recently, you know, been able to purchase a home in the Palisades that ended up burning down. And they were heartbroken and devastated, but they're pretty resilient and they're pretty hopeful, and they've decided to move to North Carolina for a year or so and regroup and get solid again and they have 2 young babies. So like give the babies some stability and somewhere safe to be while they figure things out. And so again, that's like, they've taken it on as a sense of adventure, as a sense of inquisitiveness. They see that it's almost even something that they're getting excited about, even though they're still in a state of overwhelm and exhaustion and emotional just depletion. They're starting to feel the comfort and the hope of things settling down, of being able to foresee building some kind of normalcy again. So to stay grounded within this and not go into escapism, not go into avoidance, but to be present with it. Because when these things happen, they are opportunities. And if we avoid them and look away from the scariness and look away from what's unpretty and not pleasant, then we do ourselves a disservice, because we miss the opportunity to have that heart broken open so that it can be transformed, so that we can shift our consciousness, that we can shift the way we think and the way that we show up in the world and the way that we show up for each other and for ourselves. So we are learning to be less dependent on the material world and things outside of us. And we're understanding that instead of being dependent on the vessel, the job, the city, the partner, the people, the approval, right? Like, think about all the people. I mean, there are so many people that don't have this consciousness, but I think we all know that LA is a city that is famous for being a place where people go specifically to pursue wealth and riches and fame and power. And so that's not what everyone values in LA. There are some people who are, down to earth, and they value more things than that. And there are people who aren't a monolith, right? There are people who have wealth and also have values, right? But there is probably a culture that's rampant in LA that is wanting to fit in. Should I get filler? Should I get Botox? How many houses should we have? How many cars? Like, will people perceive us poorly if we don't have how many big screen TVs in every single room? And what if we don't have, everything smart and technologically advanced to the max? It's like everything is about keeping up with the Joneses in that realm, in that aspect. And so, this is a moment where there are at least a good chunk of people right now, for the first time, having their safety net taken from them, having their facade taken, and they had to run out, and they didn't have time to pack all their, their wardrobe and their belongings and all their makeup and everything. They're exposed. They're feeling that exposure for the first time, that they don't have their defense mechanisms, right? And their shield and their mask to say, oh, look at me, these are my possessions, this is my power, this is my status. Everybody has this even playing field now. Everybody's been sort of stripped of all the Vanity Fair. And so now they're learning, okay, when I'm stripped of all of these things that I thought defined me, I can actually get the noise out of my head, and I can reconnect with who I really am without the burden of all of this. And I predict that many of the people who are in absolute crisis right now at the loss of their material things are going to start feeling a relief. And I think that there's probably going to be a lot of people come forward and actually say, you know what, I'm really glad that I can start downsizing and having a more simplified life and not being so caught up and controlled by consumerism and materiality. So I feel that this is going to create a spiritual renaissance within people. And I think that they're going to see that it's not about the vessel. That the energy that they're getting from the vessel is temporary. When you depend on your job, when you depend on your house or your spouse or your cars and your titles and everything to bring you fulfillment, those things are ephemeral. They can come and go. They're not sturdy, they're not stable, they're not eternal. But when we put our faith and our hope and our confidence in God, in the Holy Spirit, in what is constant and eternal, there's something about that gives us this edge, that we're not dependent on other people's approval or their permission anymore, which I know sounds counterintuitive, because a lot of people that are caught up in religiosity, it's all about approval and permission. But I'm talking about a real spiritual awakening and a personal, authentic relationship and connection with God. And when you have that, Nobody can tell you anything. Not about your beliefs and your practice and your relationship with God. When you know that's solid and strong, nobody's wagging finger, nobody's judgment, nobody's criticism, nobody, being judgy at you is going to bother you anymore, because you know you're taken care of, and that you know that you don't need their approval, and you have a core confidence that cannot be shaken. And so when we can tap into that certainty, even in the midst of fear, we can be shaken in our boots with trembling voice, with tears welling up in our eyes, with that amount of fear. But if we choose, I'm not going to buy into this fear, I'm not going to respond to this fear, I'm going to try to be certain, I'm going to try to have faith, and I'm going to try to follow the inner voice that's guiding me with faith right now. If we make that decision, I am feeling fear, but I am not going to choose what I feel. I'm going to choose certainty. And as your thoughts continue on that fear loop, you just turn the channel. You say, no, I'm going to choose certainty. That starts to alleviate the chaos. The chaos starts to dissipate, because remember that the reality that we live in is really an interactive matrix that gives us the level or the playing field to go through, so that we can go through this process to elevate and awaken our soul. And the more that we elevate and awaken our soul, and the more that we become like the light, like God, then the closer we draw to God, and we have that vibrational resonance, and that pulls us close to God and in union with God. And that's what brings us so much protection and so much blessing and so many miracles, right? So much abundance, because we're in that divine flow, that favor. But when we get into the reactive state, when we become emotional and we get bent out of shape and we start taking actions and on impulse like that, we are being reactive. And that's what the opponent is trying to do, because then we are not in affinity with the light, and we separate ourselves from that fulfilling union, and then we are exposed to the chaos once more. So we have to shift that consciousness back, and we have to keep it there. And that's what we're learning to do. All right, that is all for tonight. I will see y'all again tomorrow for our weekly romance oracle reading. In the meantime, y'all be sure and download the 2025 prediction series. It is in my Stan store. You can follow the link below. I will say use a Chrome browser, because I've had people tell me that Safari was freezing and they weren't able to check out with Safari. It was getting glitchy, but Chrome should be fine. And so the 2025 predictions series is fire. You will get an annual, the yearly overview with channeled messages from me, and a full Celtic cross spread, and journal questions that will help you set your consciousness and intention for the year. You will have quarterly breakdowns that have readings for each season, and those have journal questions as well to help you workshop and stay in alignment and keep your consciousness. And then we have the month-to-month readings that go more specifically into your months, and there are questions that go along with the monthly readings as well to help you workshop whatever you're going through the month. All right, y'all. I will see y'all tomorrow. Ciao. Keep LA in your prayers. Pray for rain, but not crazy rain that causes landslides, and pray for everyone's everything. Y'all, freestyle. All right. Ciao.